we're back again. This is Shakespeare with Sarah. I'm Sarah, and today I'm talking about movement and gesture in Shakespeare, or as I like to call it, what do I do with my hands? This is an age-old problem that so many actors have trouble with, and actually you should know that movement in Shakespeare is basically the same as movement in contemporary performance. But for whatever reason, we tend to be worse at moving when it comes to Shakespeare, just pretty much all actors, because there are two reasons really. One of them is because the language is complex or, unfamiliar, and so we get stuck in our heads. That's one. And the second reason is because there are a lot of myths and misconceptions around how people should move in Shakespeare. So in this video, I'm going to do a bit of myth busting. So I'm going to break down what Shakespeare is not, and so how not to move. And I'm also going to give you some really concrete exercises that you can implement to work out how you are going to move. And what's awesome is these exercises can be applied to any contemporary material that you're working on as well. So your general acting. Thank you, Sarah. Oh, you're welcome. So first, some myth busting. To really understand what you need to do here and how to act Shakespeare well, you need to understand some context around what Shakespeare is and isn't. Shakespeare is not realism, and it's also not melodrama. Let me explain a little bit more about this. What I mean here is it's not melodrama in the sense of you're not wandering around the stage going like this, holding the skull, doing repetitive gestures. That is something that actually a lot of people think that we're supposed to do. Can I just roll this out right now? Do not do that. Please never do rehearsed, repeated gestures, and you do not need to be doing big things like this. That's not what Shakespeare, as it is performed today, is about. It is also not realism, and what I mean here is it's not the kind of stuff where it's the James Dean hanging on the wall kind of casualness where you can be so naturalistic that you barely move at all. That really came out of film, and it doesn't really work for Shakespeare terribly well. So what is it? Shakespeare is what we call heightened in the style of performance. It's heightened in the sense that it is slightly bigger than everyday life, and therefore it's bigger in its energy and maybe a little bit in its movement. But already I'm using my hands a lot in everyday life, so maybe for you, if you're like me, it's not that much bigger in its movement. It might just be kind of normal level of movement for you. But if you are someone that's come from doing a lot of screen acting, or that's the style that you're just used to or you like, this might feel bigger to you. What's happening in Shakespeare is that there are situations that are bigger than normal life. Basically, they're larger than life situations. This doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have larger than life characters, though that may sometimes be the case, or it may feel like it's the case, depending on the director and the production and all those kinds of things. But it does mean that there is more energy than you would use in everyday life. That's how I think about it. There's more energy flowing because there needs to be more energy to meet the situation and to bring about the larger than life emotions that happen when there are larger than life events taking place. We still, when we're acting Shakespeare, are working from truth. This is the contemporary practice of Shakespeare. So what I mean by contemporary practice of Shakespeare is the current habits, the current preferences for performing Shakespeare today is still working from truth as you would doing contemporary material. So this This is not what audition panels or directors are looking for. So if you're looking at your monologue and thinking about, I'm going to walk over here on this line and then I'm going to wave my hands on this line, you're going about it the wrong way. So how do you go about it? Let's jump into some exercises. The goal here is that you want to connect to your body because your body is going to want to naturally move. That's normal. If your body's not moving at all, it usually means that you're kind of blocked, usually because you're fearful or you're frozen up, or maybe you're someone that just doesn't move very much naturally. Maybe you're a bit more introverted, and that's okay, but you are going to have to call upon some of that sort of extra energy that I was talking about. So I have 3 little activities, exercises, I don't know, things that you can go through to help you get into this flow and find a natural movement. These can be done in sequence, they can be done out of sequence, you can just do 1 or 2 out of the 3. Take what works, leave what doesn't. Keep in mind this is for an audition situation. Obviously, if you're in a production, you should have a director that's working with you to understand how you're moving around the space. In an audition situation, you usually got a lot less room, especially if you're having to do a self-tape, and you really don't need to demonstrate much with your movement. Number 1, before you do even your rehearsal at home, do a physical warm-up that gets you into the flow of your body. Now that might be something like some nice yoga with some sun salutations, even just like a jog around the room can help you. Some really flowing stretches are great. Tai Chi, anything that feels flowing, and especially things that connect you to breath are really, really helpful. You can actually do these warm-ups while you're working on your monologue. So if you've kind of semi-memorized your monologue or fully memorized your monologue, you can actually just kind of gently speak it through while you're doing your sun salutations or while you're jogging around the room or around the park. What you're trying to do here is firstly connect to breath, and secondly start to embody the monologue, embody the text. So when it's coming out of you, it feels normal. It doesn't feel like some sort of talking head situation where you've only thought about the words and everything has stayed up here. This is so important because you don't connect to your body, you won't connect to emotion. If you're really not familiar with this type of stuff, genuinely, I jog around the room while I recite my monologue. Just blah, 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 blah. I'm not like getting into high emotion. I just jog around the room. And it helps me memorize, and it helps me just get used to hearing it come out of me, and it just helps it drop into my breath. Simple, simple. The second exercise I want to introduce you to is called towards, away, stay. When you are moving, you are always deciding whether to move closer to somebody, further away from someone, or stay where you are. If you think about if you ever had to convince someone of something, you're probably going to move slightly closer to them, right? Because you're really trying to hammer something home. If you're really repelled by someone, like if you're disgusted or maybe you're angry, you might move away from them, right? And if you're not sure, maybe you're thinking, or maybe you just really feel like you need to stand your ground, you stay still. This happens in everyday life, and this is basically what should happen anytime you are performing a monologue. You will be driven, ideally by intuition, if you're connected, to want to move towards somebody, move away from somebody, or stay where you are. So firstly, doing that kind of flowing warm-up will help you connect to those intuitive movements. But if you're feeling like, I don't know, my intuition's not happening here, you can actually just play with it. So get your monologue, and as you experiment around, try moving towards someone on the line, moving away from them on the line, or staying still. Experiment, move around, move around, move around. If you've got a partner that you can actually work with, this can be, I think, more powerful when you've got someone to play with, because we tend to react more intuitively because we're using all our brain space basically to notice how they're reacting to things, and that can be quite powerful. You really need to trust your gut about this stuff. You need to let go of all the cerebral things. This is playtime. This is for your rehearsal, and once you've rehearsed it, you'll have a sense of what works. Then if you want, you can lock it in. You might decide that I'm going to move a few steps here and a few steps there, but you don't need to overdo this. I personally rarely ever mark down movements, only if there's stuff like, you know, here I kneel, for example. That's a clear thing where I have to kneel, or some other things that Shakespeare says where he will say, you know, you have to go and pick up a letter or whatever it is. Look for clues like that in the text and definitely do them while you're saying the line. That's a big thing with Shakespeare. But other than that, once I get a sense of the real intention, the intention to connect or the intention to disconnect or the intention to ground, I let that play out. And sometimes it might play slightly differently. I might move on a slightly different line each time. That is okay, and that is freedom. I personally would never, ever, ever try and do the monologue exactly the same each time with my intonation or my movement or anything. There must be freedom. And of course, we're always working towards a balance of having that freedom and making sure that everything is understood and you're not just flying off the handle and being crazy because, you know, you got that method feel going on. That's why it's important to do this kind of homework. Do the play stages before you go into your audition on the day or do your tape. You need to have gone through that process so you get a sense of, okay, that feels right, that feels not right, because you want to stay away from the things that don't feel right, okay? But the stuff that does feel right, there's probably a lot of things that you can play with. And the final exercise is to work against impulse. It actually makes the impulses more powerful if you do this. Ground yourself, try and stay absolutely still, and deliver your monologue with its full intensity. If you're working at full power, which you should be, but without moving, what you'll notice is that your arms and your legs, your whole body, will want to naturally move around. You should take note of when your body wants to move, and that will give you the information. I feel the drive to move forward here. I feel the pull to move away. I feel frustrated. I want to move my arms. It's going to help you build up that intensity within. This is great for the types of monologues that are really, really high emotion, but the characters are keeping it kind of inside. Think about where that energy builds up inside you as you build the intensity and the emotions are trying to come out, but they're being kept within. You can actually keep it at that kept in sort of state, or use it as an exercise to help you find where you naturally want to move and then go back to natural movement. Now, of course, these are hard to describe in a video. It's very hard for me to even demonstrate keeping that still and getting the energy going because you won't really see what I'm experiencing. So please do give it a try yourself and drop me any comments if you're confused or if it's not working for you. I'd love to help you through that, and perhaps that will give me some ideas of how I can demonstrate it further for you. Certainly the sort of thing that I would do in a class format, but you are so far away in other countries and I love you, but unless you want to come to Perth, Western Australia, probably not going to happen. Hopefully you still found that useful. Please give it a like, share, subscribe, all those things. If you did, drop me a comment and let me know what other monologues you need help with. Other than that, I wish you all the best of luck with your auditions and I hope you are learning lots and enjoying the process. Good luck. I will see you next time.